At the peak of a global recession, a young entrepreneur made a bold decision: take early success overseas and build multiple businesses in an emerging market. It looked like a shortcut to freedom and scale, but that single decision, where to build and with whom, ended up shaping years of losses, hard lessons, and eventual recovery. This story, originally shared on Reddit by an unknown user on March 24, 2019, traces the rise and collapse of three businesses built in Thailand during an economic downturn. Fresh off an $8,000 sales bonus and convinced that opportunity abroad outweighed risk, the founder chose Thailand over the UK. The comparison felt obvious at the time. Less regulation, lower taxes, minimal bureaucracy, and a destination clearly on the rise. International hotel chains were arriving, Western-style housing developments were underway, and tourism was expanding fast. Spotting a gap in the market, the founder launched the first tour company in the area designed specifically for Western customers. With professional scuba diving credentials and strong local connections through a partner's family who owned a resort and a dive boat, the business took off immediately. Strategic partnerships followed with a turtle sanctuary, international schools, major hotels like Novotel, and nearly every local restaurant. Demand surged, cash poured in, and success came faster than expected. Money moved so quickly it was barely tracked. A house was bought outright with cash. High seasons meant intense work, while low seasons turned into long parties. That mix of rapid success, boredom, and overconfidence set the stage for the next move, starting a second business with a co-founder who was barely known. At the same time, both founders were dealing with personal upheaval. One relationship ended after deep cultural and class tensions, while the other co-founder was suddenly left to raise a 3-year-old child alone. Amid emotional instability, they launched a language school. At just 25, the founder became director without the experience or maturity required to run an educational institution. Early success masked deep structural weaknesses, reinforcing the illusion of invincibility. The school grew, but the co-founder's personal financial problems made slow organic growth impossible. Expansion plans were pushed not by strategy, but by desperation. New locations and initiatives were proposed without sound economics behind them. Savings from the successful tour company were quietly drained to cover cash shortfalls. On the surface, growth looked exciting: larger contracts, more students, more visibility, but underneath, risk was compounding rapidly. As attention shifted toward the school, a third partner was brought into the original tour company, a university friend tasked with managing peak seasons. This allowed focus on the school, which now carried higher potential rewards and higher potential losses. When cash flow tightened again, relationships turned adversarial. The former partner's family, once supportive during periods of success, aligned with the new tour company partner to reclaim control of the original business. Even a house purchased with cash was taken in the process. An external investor interested in expanding the language school into another city was driven away through pressure and intimidation. There was no meaningful legal recourse. In Thailand, the reality was clear. Foreign founders rarely win against locals in court, regardless of contracts or contributions. Within a short period, two businesses, a home, years of effort, and a significant amount of money were gone. Friendships were fractured, trust was broken, and the illusion of security evaporated completely. Ironically, the only partnership that survived was the most flawed one. Despite poor decisions and personal struggles, the school co-founder remained honest, and the relationship endured. The conclusions from this experience are blunt and hard-earned. First, choosing a business partner should be treated as a more serious commitment than marriage. Partnerships demand constant communication under pressure, involve higher stakes, and can be far more expensive to unwind. Due diligence, trial projects, deep trust, and solid contracts are not optional. Second, emerging markets attract many people who failed elsewhere and rationalize weak systems by attacking places with strong institutions. The rule of law, contract enforcement, and predictable systems in countries like the UK or the US are not obstacles. They are the foundation that makes entrepreneurship survivable. Without them, success itself becomes dangerous. Third, early success is a terrible teacher. Rapid wins can erase caution and amplify bad habits. The strongest period came earlier when older and wiser mentors were still being listened to. Fourth, deep industry knowledge matters. When it's missing, working under experienced operators is far cheaper than learning through failure. Many young people underestimate how hard execution becomes once they're responsible for everything. Finally, ambition deserves respect, but clarity matters more. Chasing freedom outside traditional employment can cost far more time, money, and emotional energy than most expect. Sometimes the safest place to learn is inside a job, not outside it. After losing everything, the founder returned to the UK and spent 4 years working in software sales and marketing. It took 7 years in total to fully recover. Only now is another company being launched, this time with hard boundaries, clearer judgment, and lessons paid for in full. The experience was brutal, but it didn't end the journey. If someone gets knocked down 6 times and gets up 7, they're still standing.